Today, we explore two devastating cases of violence. On the East Coast, Caryn Faye Brown perished when her partner blasted her with a gun as she tried to flee her traumatic relationship. In the Midwest, authorities murdered Takia Young, who was just weeks away from giving birth to her second child. Written and produced by award-winning author John Reedberg, hosted by Samantha Paul, this is No Tears for Black Girls.
Federalsburg, Maryland, September 4th, 2023.
And welcome back, everyone. A homicide investigation is underway after a 27-year-old woman was found dead in Federalsburg. 47 ABC's Layla Wea joins us live in the studio with the details. Layla, what do investigators know so far?
Yeah, Hannah, in this tragic case, the young woman who was killed had tried to seek a separation order against her killer.
Caryn Faye Brown, 27, was just trying to end her toxic and violent 4-year relationship. What should have been a fresh start for her soon became a nightmare no one could imagine. The police received a call that morning about multiple gunshots heard outside Caryn's apartment complex. Upon arriving at the scene, Federalsburg Police Chief Michael McDermott had declared it an act of cold-blooded murder, targeted at taking the life of Caryn Faye Brown. Law enforcement had their sights set on Brown's former flame, a man who had engaged in a bitter argument with her. The police had been involved in the altercation and were aware of their disagreements. But even after that incident, there was no sign of physical harm to our victim, as per Chief Michael McDermott. The ex-boyfriend's retreat before law enforcement could capture him only furthered speculation about his involvement in the latest crime. Chief McDermott reported that police caught Quandry Lee Winder, the father of 2 of Brown's children, in Delaware after he had fled Maryland. According to Chief McDermott, she didn't want any contact with him anymore, but he refused to accept it. It is unlikely that Brown expected things to escalate to such extremes. A senseless act of violence ended on the night of September 4th, a once promising life. Caryn Faye had just rebuilt her future after escaping a 4-year-long abusive relationship. With the help of her family and friends, she had secured herself a full-time job and an independent home for her 2 young children. After 4 years living in fear, Caryn saw the glimmer of hope that she had craved for so long, yet they took away it from her in a single cruel moment. It's a story of tragedy and loss.
Chief McDermott says in this case, 2 lives were lost.
This ends 2 lives. I got a 27-year-old, victim that will no longer be around for her family, and I've got a 26-year-old suspect that will be, no doubt, will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Columbus, Ohio, August 24th, 2023.
Now, breaking news from NBC4.
Tonight we are seeing new video of what led up to a deadly shooting where a Blended Township police officer killed Takia Young.
We are also seeing for the first time what happened after the officer fired that single shot. We recognize, though, not everyone wants to see this.
This is particularly tough to watch. Some of these images are going to be disturbing, and if you do not want to see it, now's the time to step away, maybe hit mute or step away from the TV for a few minutes.
On Thursday evening, August 24th, 2023, Takia Young, a 21-year-old pregnant mother, made the fateful decision to stop by her local Kroger in Columbus, Ohio. Little did she know that what would occur inside that store would be the catalyst for an all-too-familiar chain of events. The police soon arrived at the scene with sirens blaring, and witnesses described seeing her car had crashed into an exterior wall. It was then that they knew this was no ordinary case of gun violence. There is no evidence of a 911 call being made, and it is unclear how officers were dispatched to the scene. What they know is that an officer shot Young. According to news reports, officers were told that a woman was shoplifting alcohol from the store. Another account, which comes from Blended Township Police Chief John Belford, is that officers were in the parking area to assist a woman who was locked out of her vehicle. Body cam video footage shows officers ordering a woman out of her car more than a dozen times, according to news reports. Interestingly, the authorities have chosen not to release that footage publicly, according to news reports. The woman put the car in gear and suddenly it lurched forward towards the officer. Belford said in a statement that the officer had no choice but to act as if their life hung in the balance. He raised his gun, took aim, and fired one shot through the front windshield. Columbus civil rights attorney Sean Walton, who had been in contact with the victim's family, told a media outlet that while it was still too soon to make any conclusions on whether the officer's actions were justified, he was keeping a close eye on the case. It was time to determine the fate of those involved. But the question at hand remained, what happened that fateful night? Was it before or after the gunshot wound that young mother Lauren Young, her 2 children, ages 6 and 2, careened into a brick wall? The answer remains unclear, as they pronounced her dead on arrival at the St. Anne's Hospital.
Here's a recent update on the case involving 21-year-old Takia Young.
Again, we want to be transparent here. We're showing you today's video because it does answer some key questions many people had, including us.
Yeah, NBC4's Jamie Ostroff is here now to break down the information we are learning from this newly released video. Jamie?
Yeah, Jen and Jared, until this afternoon, the only footage we had from Blendon Township were 2-minute-long clips, one from each of the body-worn cameras from the 2 officers that were involved, showing the moments immediately before and immediately after the shooting. Now, this new footage shows why officers approached Young in the first place and how that response was handled during her final moments. Again, this video is extremely hard to watch, so we're going to show you as little of it as possible to tell the most complete, fair, and accurate story from the beginning. Surveillance footage from inside Kroger's liquor store shows Takia Young taking bottles from the shelves and placing them in her purse. 2 other women walk in separately. About a minute and a half later, they approach Young while she waits in line with more liquor in a shopping basket. You see the 3 women leave the store together without paying. Surveillance video from outside the store shows Young walking to her car, the black sedan shown here, alone. As she gets in, a man who police describe as a Kroger manager flags down 2 nearby officers, helping a woman get into her locked car. One officer approaches Young from the driver's side. Seconds later, the other moves in front of the car. We know from that officer's body camera footage that he fires a single shot as soon as Young's car moves forward. It keeps rolling and crashes into the store. Blendon Township police are now showing us what happened after those officers smashed the window to get Young out of the car, telling us they needed time to blur the graphic footage.
Your foot's on the gas, Sil. Foot's on the gas.
Officers remove Young from the car and cuff her.
Shots fired, we need medics.
That is the officer who fired the shot, calling for medics about 20 seconds after Young is out of the car. He runs to get gloves and supplies while the other officer begins aid. The officer, still with Young, calls for a medic less than a minute later. Shortly after that, a bystander approaches wearing black scrubs.
Trying to get her stable.
The doctor stays and helps officers. More officers and sheriff's deputies arrive, stepping in to continue the CPR that the first officers had started. As the officer who fired speaks to others on the scene, he can be heard saying,
"Try to run me over."
You can hear him say that phrase 3 times over the course of 10 minutes before he's taken back to the police station for officer support. About 9 minutes after Takia Young was shot, the officer still on scene asks,
"Where's the medic at?"
They're on their way. They weren't told it was clear to come in.
More than 11 minutes went by between the time Young was shot and the time the ambulance arrived. As the officer speaks to others on the scene, including the chief of police,
I'm gonna mute.
he can be seen muting his body-worn camera for minutes at a time. So Blendon Township police say they are still looking for the 2 other women who walked out of the liquor store with Young. They are asking anyone who might know them to call Crime Stoppers. In the past hour, I spoke with attorney Sean Walton, who is representing Young's family. He told me he asked Blendon Township for the video you just saw, but he didn't get it until I sent it to him. Here's what he had to say about it.
It shows us nothing but more evidence of murder. And I fully believe that this just further solidifies our position that a murder occurred here and that officer Connor Grubb should be terminated and indicted.
Blendon Township police have not released the names of either of the 2 officers who confronted Young. In a statement today, they repeated their reasoning that the officers are victims of assault and protected by Marsy's law.
Love us? Leave us a positive review or rating. Follow No Tears for Black Girls on social media and No Tears for BG on Twitter. Be blessed, be loved, stay safe.